This is the finale, season 6 finale. 59 brand new episodes delivered fresh to your door. How about that?
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it deserves.
This is Third Song In with Chris Derrickson and Tom Polachek.
Welcome to the season finale of season 6 of Third Song In, your favorite podcast.
And we're talking about the year that we all thought would be the finale, the year 2000, aka Y2K, aka the end of computers.
Yes, and as a result, the end of civilization, or at least that's what a lot of people thought.
Yeah, I
It's
was kind of freaked out, man.
Were you? I was going to ask you because I have to say I didn't really think there was going to be a major problem. I thought it was overblown, but I will admit that 11:59 on 1999, I was like, well, I guess we'll see now, and just waiting for airplanes to drop directly straight down to the ground, not glide. They would just fall from the air straight down.
Yeah, I remember I was working at an American university, living in DC, and I felt like, there's a lot of talk about all the fixes that had to happen in the computers so they'd keep working and all that stuff. And it seemed like we'd made good progress. But I was the same way. At 11:59, I held my breath a little. We were watching, um, probably Dick Clark's,
Yeah.
New Year's Eve and waiting for some big news story to come in. And it was like the most anticlimactic moment in a really long time. So
Yeah,
that
I
that's
would
what our
agree.
podcast is going to be too. Our season finale will be the second most anticlimactic thing.
Everybody thought that this episode is the one that would destroy the internet. um, when
People are
you
willing
so
to people are willing to destroy the internet just to kill our podcast.
I don't know what happened. Everybody disconnected their computers. When you were at American University in 1999, were you working on the tech side?
No, I was in the, let's see, 19, I was probably still in the registrar's office. I worked in the registrar's office for a couple of years, then I went over and did advising for the rest of my time. Oh no, that's not true. I did admissions too. I did all kinds of shit at American.
You did everything
Um,
but.
Everything but I got to know the tech guys. They came through and but yeah, I vaguely understood what the Y2K bug problem was, but I didn't, I can't say that I could have fixed it or explained it any better than I am right now.
Well, that's why I asked, because I was wondering, like, if you had been doing what you're doing now, it seems like you would have a better handle on just how good or bad or how dangerous it really was. Like, I wonder, of course, that's a long time ago, but I feel like if you're actually involved in the process, particularly, on a major network like the universities would have, that you probably have a better handle on what was going on.
Yeah, and I think I now have several like really trusted, knowledgeable IT colleagues. I just ask them. It's like I do with everything else in life.
That's exactly. Well, it's funny. Like I said, I wasn't overly concerned about civilization ending and when it turned to the year 2000, and I was trying to think back to how I felt and what my outlook was back then. I was in 1999, in December of 1999, I was 33 years old, which seems really young now. But
Yeah.
I felt at the time, I felt like I was entering middle age. I didn't have kids yet, but we were talking about having kids, and I was, I felt like I had started my career and that, I was kind of sailing into middle age. And I got to say, I felt pretty optimistic, setting aside the concerns that all the computers were going to, die and that Skynet was going to take over or whatever the hell else, all the sci-fi movies told us. I actually was pretty optimistic, excuse me, going into the year 2000. And I am shocked at how less optimistic I am right now. It's hard to look back at that change, in the calendar without, putting it in the context we are right now. And, I just felt like we were moving in the right direction. I think everybody was kind of, I think everybody all agreed that our president at the time was Clinton, and that he was a man of questionable moral character, but that he was doing things that were moving us forward. Turns out some of the things he did were probably not great things to do, but at least economically speaking, and even socially speaking, I just felt like we were, slowly moving towards a better America, which is how I had felt ever since I was a kid. Every year, I just felt like things, even when we had setbacks and leadership that I maybe didn't agree with, I still felt like the system was moving us forward. And it's hard to look back on being optimistic as a 33-year-old and then, sit in today's world and think, oh yeah, everything's just getting better, because it ain't right now.
And yeah, I mean, I'm going to switch conversation in a slightly different direction because you made me think about it. And we talked about, the Y2K stuff being so anticlimactic. I remember for 33 years thinking of how old I was going to be when 2000 hit. Because
Yeah.
like when I was a kid, I'd be like, holy shit, I'm going to be 33 years old when the year 2000 comes. And then as you get closer and closer, you're like, I'm only going to be 33 years old. It's like,
Yeah, back when like in junior high, you were like, geez, I'll have grandchildren. I'll be retired.
Yeah. So it's funny how your perspective changes as you get as our perspective changed as we got closer and closer to that sort of magical date. And I don't know, like I said, it definitely went from that, like, God, I wish I was 33 now, because
Yeah.
we joked about, pissing in the middle of the night. Yeah, I wouldn't mind rolling out of bed and not being sore. So
Yeah, not to mention just a little bit more energy would be nice.
yeah. But yeah, it was fairly quick. I mean, yeah, Clinton, questionable morals, questionable decisions, but you're right. It did feel like we were moving in the right direction. I'd be curious, obviously. I mean, the one thing that I'm noticing is I'm no longer in touch with the American public because the, address the other night to the two houses was embarrassing to me. And then the next day it's like received mostly positive reviews. Like the majority of people approved of it. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with
Yeah,
us?
it just
And
is, the
so
standards are so low at this point. And I mean, there's a reason they're low, and the expectations have been lowered by a lot. But yeah, you don't. I agree with you. I can't connect with that feeling. And of course, the thing about the year 2000 and being optimistic after January 1st is that it was less than 2 years later that 9/11 happened,
yeah,
and that changed the course of everything. That's our generation's "where were you when it happened" moment, right? That's like the Kennedy assassination for our folks. I can remember exactly what I was doing, where I was when I saw the first tower come down, and that definitely affected my optimism in a different way. I still felt like the politicians, initially, I felt like we were coming together, and despite the horrific thing that happened, everything was going to be okay. But it didn't take long to see how it was being taken advantage of. And it wasn't much longer after that you realized we were literally being lied to so that we could invade another
yeah.
country. And it became harder to be optimistic. And it took a long time for me to shake that off. And probably wasn't until the Obama election where I felt like, okay, we're still moving forward. Everything's slow. We just have to be patient. And
I also remember exactly where I was. And there's two big things I remember. One was I was still an American. So obviously DC was an epicenter of a lot of what was happening. They had us all leave our buildings, which may or may not have been the best thing. We're all standing out on the quad, and all these rumors are flying, including one where there was a terrorist controlled airplane flying over Dulles, and a fighter jet was going to go intercept it, and then a freaking fighter jet flew over our like. So this stuff seemed like it was all happening. We had, I mean, it was all happening, but we all these different rumors about what was really going on. So that was one. It was really bizarre being in DC when it happened.
Yeah, I can't
And
imagine.
then the other thing is this whole idea you talked about how things changed. My daughter was turning 4, and we were going to take her to her favorite restaurant that night for her birthday, and we still did, just because we didn't know what else to do. Because you just
Right.
tried to be normal. There's like no one there. Everyone tried to keep up, good spirits, and she was only 4, so I don't know that it ever really registered. But that whole change in how you perceive life, and also trying to maintain normalcy. I know that's not a word, but it became a word. Trying to maintain what was normal and what wasn't, just so you wouldn't, freak out. So,
Yeah, I can imagine that it was a different feeling of horror and expectation on the East Coast than it was where I was. Not only, I mean, we were near Chicago, so theoretically that could have been a target just as easily as other cities, but particularly because of the distance we were from Chicago, it didn't feel like we were at immediate risk. It was more the horror of seeing what was going on to fellow Americans, 12 hours away. So I can only imagine. And we both know people who were actually in New York City when this happened, and
right.
you know, how crazy, when they describe it, if you ever talk to anybody who was in that area at the time, and what a huge emotional impact it had. I was definitely insulated from that, but I still can remember in the days after 9/11 standing outside and looking up, and there not being a single airplane, no aircraft in the sky at all. And again, being near O'Hare Airport and Midway Airport, two fairly major hubs. O'Hare at that time I think was still considered the busiest airport in the United States, and just nothing, no planes. Joliet's in the flight pattern for both those airports, depending on where the flight's coming from, and there was just nothing there, and it was such a weird, numb feeling, even for me. And again, I think I was fairly insulated from the immediate impacts, and luckily for me and my family, I don't know anyone who was directly impacted by those attacks, but you still just felt it, and it just was such a, like I said, it certainly kind of killed optimism there for
Yeah.
quite a while, I think.
And I know we're no longer really just talking about the year 2000, but for
Yeah.
me, the connection is, for a good year, at least, it seems like there was this overriding anxiety about, Y2K, and, would we be able to fix all the computers? So again, airplanes wouldn't fall out of the sky. So that, to
Yeah.
me, in my memory, that starts this anxiety-ridden experience that has been the last 25 years. Because I mean, you have, and it's not all been the 25 years, but there was so much anxiety about, about 2000. Like we talked about it when we were kids, that was that magical year. We're going to be 33, but it was still the year 2000. It seems so far away.
Yeah. It was science
And
fiction,
then,
right?
yeah, it was science fiction. So then when it finally arrived, we're all anxious. It's like, oh, fuck, we didn't set the computers up right. It's all going to fall apart. And then just a couple of years later, 9/11, and you and I have talked, I'm skipping ahead now, a couple decades, but it just seems like anxiety has been a prevailing theme ever since 2000. We've talked about how it is with kids, how they sometimes define themselves by their
Yeah.
anxiety and their emotional challenges. You and I have talked about in the last 6 months or so, how overwhelmed we are by anxiety and concerns about where we're going and all that stuff. So it's a loose connection, but to me, it's the first time that I remember so much anxiety was leading up to, Y2K. So that's our wonderfully uplifting theme for today's
Yeah, this
podcast.
didn't turn out the way I thought it was. When I started working on the outline, I kept thinking about how as soon as we got past New Year's Eve, I was optimistic going forward, and I was, for 9 months. So I guess maybe
Yep.
let's focus on the first 9 months of the year 2000, and maybe in later episodes we'll just dole it out a little bit about how it got kind of crazy, and the the culture of fear began, I'm afraid, in the United States.
Good luck with your editing there, buddy.
So in light of that, let's jump right into our final recommendation for the decade of the 90s for season 6, with recommendations from the year 2000. We both have a recommendation of pop culture for you to go listen to or see. My recommendation from the year 2000 is an album by Robbie Fulks. The title is The Very Best of Robbie Fulks. Ironically, it's not a greatest hits collection, but it's all songs that this particular performer had recorded but not yet released by 2000. It's weird to me, we haven't talked about Robbie Fulks, and I haven't talked about Robbie Fulks very much, including our recent episode about alt country, because he was one of the alt country guys I listened to a ton back when we were living in St. Louis when I was going through law school. He really was a poster boy for the whole alt country, insurgent country, Bloodshot Records wing of country music back then. He was very funny. He had very kind of caustic lyrics sometimes. One of his songs was about Nashville, and it was called Fuck This Town. But what's weird is he was actually a very traditional country singer and musician, very, very indebted both to classic country music and bluegrass, less of a punk rock influence than a lot of the alt country stuff we like Uncle Tupelo and Bottle Rockets and those guys. This album came out in 2000. He'd already had a few albums out. I really liked this one. When I bought it, I was like, I did think it was a greatest hits, and I was such a fan. I bought it for that reason. And then I was like, I haven't heard any of these songs. What are these songs? One of the songs that I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in detail later, but the third song in on the album is Roots Rock Weirdos, which I loved, and I used to play all the time. It was one of those funny songs that he wrote that I both identified with, but also could like point at other people and say, see, those guys are roots rock weirdos, not me, even though I was listening to all that music and was really wrapped up in all of that stuff. That album has a great duet with Kelly Willis, who is still active, performer on the scene these days. Again, very funny song called Parallel Bars. I've seen him a couple times because he kind of operates out of Chicago, did for years and years, and then he moved, I think, to New York for a while, and then maybe he's in LA. I'm not sure where he is now. But he still performs, he still tours a lot, and he plays a lot around Chicago because so many people love him around here. I feel like he's gotten a little grumpy. I think he's only a year or two older than us, but he definitely has a kind of grumpy old man to his patter these days in between songs. But he's still extremely funny. He's really a brilliant guy, and he's just gotten better and better as a guitar player, and it's really impressive to watch him play live. But I've always been a fan. He once did an album that was solely of Michael Jackson covers, Michael Jackson from the Jackson 5, and they're awesome. Obviously they're redone in a very country style, and sometimes that's really gimmicky, but you can tell that he loved that music and listened to it when he was young, and that's a great album. But my recommendation, as I go on and on here, is for his 2000 album, The Very Best of Robbie Fulks.
Very nice. That's a perfect selection for you to wrap up this decade, because he's the person I think I most associate you with early on with your alt country or Americana listening. And I appreciate him, but I never really got into him as much as you did. So he's yours. So good.
Yeah, it's funny that I barely mentioned him in prior episodes, even when we've talked about that movement, because you're right. There was a time where I probably listened, every other song I listened to would be a Robbie Fulks song. It seems.
Yep. Yeah, you loved him, or still love him, I guess. So.
I do. And again, I just saw him live not too long ago. About 2 summers ago, I saw him play live in a real small venue, and he was fantastic. It was a lot of fun.
How many times have you seen him?
I have probably seen Robbie Fulks 8 or 10 times over the last 20 years or so. This last time we saw him, Dawn and I were going to Michigan to see a movie. Long story, but there's like this cool independent movie house that's not about an hour and a half from here. And we just decided on a weekend, hey, somebody told me about that place. I said, let's go there. And on the way there, we found a hotel room. So like it was all spur of the moment. And as I was looking online at what else might be going on in this town, Three Oaks, Michigan, turned out Robbie Fulks was playing at a place called the Acorn, which is a really cool venue. And I got online and I was like, hey, I could get 2 tickets. You want to go? So we went completely, no plans to see him, and it just made for a really cool evening. It was a lot of
That's
fun.
awesome.
Yeah,
That's
it
cool.
was very spontaneous.
All righty. So I went in a different direction, usually in the music person for my recommendations. I went with what is honestly one of my all-time favorite movies. I've probably seen it as many times as you've seen Robbie Fulks
Huh.
live, but it's Nicolas Cage's The Family Man, directed by Brett Ratner, I'm sorry. Also starring Tia Leone, who's awesome in the movie, and then probably my favorite character is Don Cheadle, plays an angel of sorts. And I won't get into it too much, but it's Nicolas Cage is this high-powered, broker dealer in New York, and he's, over the top, which perfect role for him because he can do over the top better than anybody. And he gets a voicemail or a message from an old girlfriend who he thinks might be all of a sudden, wanting to rekindle things or whatever, and calls her back, and I don't think she answers, whatever. But he goes to the store, runs into Don Cheadle. He's kind of a jerk to him, and he's like, careful what you wish for. Next morning, he wakes up and he's in this alternate life where he married his old girlfriend. They live in the suburbs, have 2 kids. He's not the big, powerful man he thought he was. He works at a tire dealership, sells tires. So it's this whole movie, it's very cliched movie when you think about it, because we've all seen this in different settings, but this is one of my favorites. Says he sort of realizes the value of this family life, hence the family man. And then at a certain point at the end, he wakes up, and he runs, he's back to being his old life, and he runs to find his girlfriend, a previous girlfriend, and the last scene is them sitting talking at an airport. He tries to talk her into not leaving because that's what she wasn't interested in rekindling things. She was just telling him that she was moving to Paris and had some of his shit. It has one of my favorite lines that I've said 1,000 times. There's one point where he goes back into his office and he's looking at the drawers, and he opens the top drawer and there's a little bottle of scotch, I think, or whiskey, whatever it was. And he's like, you must have needed this every day. So whenever I see whiskey or whatever, I say that, people are probably like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? So, but that's one of my favorite lines, one of my favorite movies. So Family Man from the year 2000.
That I think that's a great choice. Was unexpected when I saw you put it on the outline. I didn't realize that was as big a movie for you as it is. I do think that's a kind of a sleeper.
Yeah,
I really like that movie, but again, I don't think a ton of people have seen it. It's kind of a reverse It's a Wonderful Life.
yeah,
It's got the angel, and it is showing you a life that could have been, except it's showing you how good it could have been if you had done this, as opposed to how bad it would have been if you weren't around.
right.
But it's a fairly restrained Nicolas Cage.
Yeah,
And I agree. I think Tia Leone is the MVP of that movie. I think she does a great job. Uh,
yeah.
but I was shocked to see you pick that one, but I think it's a great choice. And it does kind of capture some optimism there that, as we talked about, may have been short-lived, but certainly was in that film for sure.
Yeah, it's almost, is the optimism real or is it? Because you don't really quite know what happens at the end.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. But either way, it feels like he's learned some
Yeah,
lessons. So,
absolutely.
yeah, no, I like that movie. I like that one a lot.
All right, I think that's going to take us to Unknown Unknowns.
'Cause I love the unknown. I love the unknown.
And as much as Tom and I have enjoyed this segment, we are officially retiring it after this episode. So I get to choose the last unknown unknown. And we have what I hope will end up being a fairly special one. My choice for this episode's unknown unknown is Matthew Grimm, lead singer of the Hang Dogs, lead singer as a solo artist, and with a band called the Red Smear. I would encourage folks, if they haven't already, to go read my blog from a couple weeks ago, or maybe now a couple months ago, called My Grim Internal Soundtrack. It's about Matthew's music, dating back to the Hangdogs, and all the way up to roughly the present. Over the course of his career, he's been a fantastic songwriter. One of my all-time favorites of his is from the 2013 album Songs in the Key of Your Face. It's the opening track, Woody Guthrie's 33rd Resolution. As fitting as ever, because he sings through, mentions several, and I know Woody Guthrie had written this down at one point, and the 33rd resolution is stand up and fight. And just the way he delivers that is a, really powerful, I think, song, and a very timely one, even though it was written 12 years ago. But you go all the way back to the Hangdogs, they have some rockin' bar songs, but he's always sort of singing about the downcast and the folks who may be fighting against odds. And I feel like Matthew Grimm was one of the first male singers to sort of imbue females with some power in his songs. There's a song called The Gun Song. It's about a woman who in the opening scene is in an abusive situation. She escapes from it. Her abusive husband, I think, tracks her down, and she shoots and kills him in a restaurant, which is where she's working. And it's really the song of these two guns that are involved in tragic incidents. But along the way is the story of these two tragic characters. And while she does kill him, there's no joy in it. In fact, it ruins her life, but she has the power to stand up to him. You don't get, this song's probably 30 plus years. I mean, it's an older song. It's, I think, from their second album. He's one of my favorites. And that I hope is conveyed in that blog that I wrote. And what Tom and I are most excited about is we've been in touch with Matthew over the last couple of weeks, and he has tentatively agreed to join us on a future episode to talk about yeah, I know. I'm super excited.
I am too.
And possible that he will have some newer music to discuss and share with us. So we're not holding him to anything. We're just excited that he's even, considered being on the podcast, which is really, I don't know how to say, really cool for us. And we look forward to the time we can sit down and have a conversation with him. So
Absolutely.
that's my choice for the last unknown. I think Tom and I are going to try to shorten our episodes just a touch going forward. And this is a segment that, while we enjoyed it, as I said, we find ways to get some of these underappreciated and deserving bands and artists into the conversation otherwise. So
yeah, I
we'll
think you'll see us just sliding those people into our recommendations, and our staff picks and what have you. So we're trying to err on the side of brevity, but I think it is the perfect final unknown, because if there's someone who should be better known than he is, it's Matthew Grimm and that band Hangdogs. The album Beware of Dog is one of my favorite albums, and The Gun Song is one of those songs that when I first got the album, I played it over and over and over, and it's just fantastic. And really every song on that album is just amazing to me. So I'm really excited. I can't wait to talk to him, and just let's just hope we don't screw it up.
Yeah, let's hope. And just to reiterate, how underappreciated, and especially if you take a listen to any of their albums, but like Tom said, Beware of Dog is one of my favorite albums of all time too. But they have 165 followers as the Hangdogs on YouTube Music.
It's amazing.
And I think he has 92 as a solo artist. It's just criminal how underappreciated he is.
Agreed. That leads us to our next segment, which is Post Facto.
It's a mistake. It's a mistake.
Post Facto is a chance for us to correct mistakes or follow up on information we either provide or alluded to in earlier episodes. I got a couple things that I alluded to, or at least a couple things that I want to revisit that we've talked about in earlier episodes this season. One of them is a recommendation you made, and I can't remember what episode it was, but you recommended a novel called Hyperion by Dan Simmons, who is, I think, one of your top authors these days. Hyperion is a sci-fi, a sprawling sci-fi story that is, I think, modeled on the Canterbury Tales and is, I don't know, in terms of digital pages. I read this on my iPad. My post facto is that I read the book, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit because you had recommended it, and I hadn't read anything by Simmons. I really enjoyed the book, the character development, the stories. It is crazy. He's one of those sci-fi authors that is very hard science fiction and throws so much detail into his description of what's going on without really explaining things. So he just names these futuristic devices and things that occur without really explaining what they are, and you have to pick it up through the context. And he's really good at it. Like by the end of the book, I understand what a farcaster is, and he just mentions it, in the first few pages. I'm like, what the fuck is a farcaster? And you kind of you get the history of this universe that he's created by just listening to people talk about their, these tales, these stories that these various characters have. My only beef with the book is that it's like 12 or 1300 digital pages long. It took, it's a long read, and it ends with no conclusion whatsoever. Like you've learned about all these characters and you're just like, and I knew going in it was part of a series. You had told me that, but I was hoping for at least some kind of end to something, And no, I got to read the next book to find out what happens to any of the people that are in that novel. So that's my only complaint. But I already bought the book and I'm going to start reading it. I need to take a little breather, I think. But it was a great recommendation in the sense that I was really sucked into it. And, as long as it was, I think I read it in a week, which is not usually the case with some of these long sci-fi or fantasy novels you get, because it just takes a while to get started. But I am a little pissed that he just suckered me into buying another book.
Well, don't worry. There's 2 more after the Fall of Hyperion.
Yeah, I saw that. It's a 4-book series. I'm like, motherfucker, if I get to the end of the next one and nothing, I don't have any conclusion for any of these characters, I'm going to be a little bit pissed. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, I wanted to follow up on that because you brought up a number of episodes back. The other kind of post facto thing was we did, in our Canada episode, we did talk about a couple TV shows out of Canada. One in particular was Shoresy. And I had mentioned in that episode that a new season was coming out. I didn't realize how quickly it was coming out. And last week, I realized that season 4 of Shoresy had dropped on Hulu. That's the TV show about the hockey team up in Canada. And I recommended it highly, and I recommend season 4 just as highly as the rest of it. It's just so funny. It basically, season 4 dropped on February 26th, which was just a few days, I think, after we recorded that episode. The only reason I bring it up in post facto is it gives me 2 opportunities to make staff picks this episode. So I say watch it. I think it's great. If you like Letterkenny, you'll love Shoresy, and if you like the first 3 seasons of Shoresy, season 4 is maybe even better than the earlier ones.
I have one post facto, and I think you'll agree with me that we are fucking pissed. They canceled The Recruit.
We are pissed.
2.
Son of a bitch. We are pissed. We just got that news like 2 days ago.
I know. I thought at first it was just one of those like fake stories that comes out because you see all these things that try to get you to click, and then it pretty quickly turned into reality. They're freaking canceling the damn thing. So, which is really weird because every article I've read about the cancellation says that it was one of the most watched TV series on Netflix. Yeah.
And they canceled it anyway. And I guess the reason was it was very similar to another show they had. And I get the impression that The Recruit was fairly expensive to make because they did a lot of international travel. I don't care, man. I really like that show.
I did too. I'm glad I canceled Netflix, you fuckers. All right, sorry about that. A few too many curse words. So that'll take us then to our staff picks.
Randall,
Staff Picks is Tom and I's attempt to recreate going into music stores, video stores, where the staff members make recommendations of new material to the customers. And Tom and I try to recommend something either brand new or soon to be released. So what do you got for Staff Picks this time?
One thing I'll point out before I give my staff pick is if you want a way to gauge how old we are, just listen to us talk about video stores.
I know, exactly.
I like, when was the last time? There is a video store open in Joliet, one of those family videos. I don't know if you have those on the East Coast, but I don't know what they do. I don't know why they're open. I assume they're a front for a drug ring. That's all I can assume. But
I'm gonna start introducing it as our attempt to recreate video stores and cassette stores. So
yeah, we are pretty damn old. My staff pick for our final episode of season 6 is an album titled Honeysuckle. It's by the Reverend Peyton's Big Damn Band. It just came across through an algorithm, New Music or something like that. Or no, I take it back. I got an email. I get a bunch of emails from alt country and blues magazines and online websites and stuff. And they're always full of reviews. You can click on this and read this review or that review. I wish I could remember which one it was that I got. I think it may have been No Depression, which still exists. So it used to be a paper magazine, that I subscribed to, and now it's just a website. But they send out a lot of, I want to say they send out a weekly email that gives you, new releases and reviews of stuff. And they reviewed the Reverend Peyton's Big Damn Band. This is very much a traditional blues album, played in traditional blues style. The leader, who I assume is Reverend Peyton, when he sings, it feels a lot like listening to like the old original Robert Johnson stuff, like old blues. But it's updated, and it's basically acoustic, lots of slide guitar. You hear some washboard in there. It's really just a good blues album, and I haven't heard a good traditional blues album in quite some time. The guy's got a lot of energy when he sings, and it just dropped about a week or so ago, and I highly recommend that you go pick up or listen to, wherever you stream music, to Honeysuckle by the Reverend Peyton's Big Damn Band.
Nice. And you know what? I've heard that band's name forever. Never checked them out. So this will
Is that right?
prompt me. Yeah.
That's because I had not. They were a complete surprise to me. One of the reasons the article caught my eye was just I thought the name of the band was hilarious, and I thought, well, what's this all about? And these days it's so easy then just to click over to iTunes or Spotify and just listen to a song. And I listened to the whole album through just as a result of that. But I had never heard of them before.
Well, I think you've heard of my guy, at least my staff pick. It's John Moreland. I shouldn't say underrated in any way, but he has one of the most beautiful voices. He writes consistently great songs. Break My Heart Sweetly from 2013, I think the album was called In the Throes, is easily one of my top 10 all-time favorite songs. And he just put out a little EP called John Moreland Live AF Session. So it's in conjunction with Western AF, and I assume AF stands for what we think it stands for, which is as fuck. 4 songs, all live, and he knocks it out of the park like he always does. One of my other favorite songs of his is the third one in. There's only 4 songs, but it's I Need You to Tell Me Who I Am. Really pretty, really moving song. He's also, and I feel bad for this because who cares, but he is not the most handsome man you've ever seen in your life. And he wasn't necessarily handsome before, but he's now shaved his head and he has tattoos all across his head. It's just an interesting look, and I just choose to listen to him versus looking at him. And that's horrible.
Yeah.
I know it's very surface and all that stuff.
No.
But I do find it to be an interesting, because love can happen to anyone. You got to think that you have experienced love in relationships to sing the depth that he does, because he has some beautiful love songs and beautiful and pain, heartbreaking breakup songs. And then I just saw a photo of him pop up. That's probably because he was coming out with this EP with the tattoos on his head. And I'm like, man, somehow you made yourself look even less attractive. But his voice is as attractive as they come. He's a fantastic singer, great songwriter. Check out his live AF session that just dropped.
I'm gonna have to listen to that. For whatever reason, I've never jumped on the John Moreland bandwagon. And maybe it's because I don't know why it is. Maybe his voice is a little too nice. We fall back on that occasionally, but I'm going to listen to this because I feel like it's been a while since I've listened to John Moreland. I have another friend who's a big fan, and I listened to a couple albums and I just couldn't get into it, and I don't remember why. So it's time to listen again and see if maybe I was wrong in the first place. It may be a post facto for the future once I listen to it. Every episode of Third Song In, we present our playlist picks. We have a running playlist for each season. This episode, we will be adding our 19th and 20th songs to the playlist. We try to pick songs that we feel relate to the theme of the episode if we can, but mainly it's just another opportunity for us to recommend some music we think you should listen to. Do you have a playlist pick for this episode? You sure as hell ought to, since that's the whole purpose.
I do, dude. All right. So you have to you have to follow my logic here. So I almost chose "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" as my recommendation. That came out in 2000. So there it is, firmly in the 2000 camp. And any number of great songs to choose from the soundtrack, including "I'll Fly Away" by Alison Krauss and Gillian Welch. Great version. I think it's the most recorded song, if not, I mean, it's one of the most re-recorded songs of all time. And as good as that version is, I thought that one of our guests had recommended it, or at least we talked about it in one of our episodes, so I didn't want to choose it for the playlist. So I chose a more recent version of it by a band called Sesto, and BJ Barham, who is the lead singer for American Aquarium. They released a version in 2018, and it is not only one of my all-time favorites, it's a very religious song. It's just a great version of this song, possibly topping the Alison Krauss and Gillian Welch version.
Really?
Of "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" Yeah. It's got some rough voices, which is why I think I like it. Like BJ Barham sounds like he may have, woke up a little late on this day, because his voice is definitely rough. He's a recovering alcoholic, so I don't want to say that he, had a hangover or anything. So he just must have slept in or something. But it makes it even more powerful because it's just a great song. And I like this band, Sesto. They're from Charleston, South Carolina. I've been listening to them more and more. So folks, check it out on our playlist when we release with this episode.
Yeah, the "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" soundtrack version is one of Dawn's, my wife's, favorite songs. She loves "I'll Fly Away." She plays it still after all these years. She still plays it, frequently. I'm looking forward to listening to that one. So I went back also to the year 2000 for my playlist pick, and I picked a song I already mentioned. And I'm trying to make up for not talking about Robbie Fulks for the last year by picking a Robbie Fulks song. I went through all of our playlists, by the way, and I've never picked a Robbie Fulks song for any of the season playlists or special playlists we've done for this podcast. It's just astounding to me, as much as I listen to Robbie Fulks, that I hadn't done that. So I'm picking the song "Roots Rock Weirdos," which is the third song in on the very best of Robbie Fulks, which came out in 2000. It really captures that era's Robbie Fulks. He's a little angry. He's really, really smart. It's a really funny song, and it's very catchy. You listen to it and you end up singing along by the end of the song, even if it's the first time you've heard it. So that will go as our final song on our season 6 playlist, which you can find streaming wherever you stream your music. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, and YouTube Music. I urge you to share it when you listen to it. I urge you to download it. And I urge you to get in touch with us and let us know what you think about that playlist, about our earlier season playlists. and about anything else about the podcast you'd like to talk to us about.
Yeah, tell Tom how my songs are so much better than his on those playlists.
Yeah, I don't think so, man. Well,
Have
that
you
is
listened to our playlists?
I listen to our playlist. I'm afraid I'm the one who boosts the numbers on our playlist because I think I probably listen to those playlists more than anybody else.
You bastard. I thought those were real people listening to it.
No, they're not real. It's just me. I literally listen to a season playlist 1 through 6 at least once a week, I bet. Just for the hell of it. And you know
Skewing our
why?
numbers.
Yeah.
Skewing our numbers, dude.
But here's the thing, man. We pick good songs and it's worth listening to.
It's true. Well, you know what? That brings us to the end of season 6. That's crazy.
We finished, what did we say? 59 original episodes of Third Song In are now almost in the can, assuming we can get through this last little part, which is a big if, admittedly. But
yeah, we've been talking for a while. This is usually when we start to fall apart.
exactly. But we have every intention of doing a season 7. In fact, we've got a couple guests already lined up. We'll take a 2-week break in between this episode when it drops and our first episode of season 7, which I thought I wrote down when it was going to come out, and I don't think I did. I did. I put it on the outline. Season 7 will premiere on April 7th, and we are going to talk about Bloodshot Records. We've mentioned it in passing frequently, particularly when we talked about alt country and that movement out of the kind of St. Louis and Southern Illinois area. I just mentioned it because Robbie Fulks started out as a Bloodshot guy. I believe Bottle Rockets started there, and a lot of our favorite musicians at least began with Bloodshot Records out of Chicago. So that's going to be our season 7 premiere, and that'll come out on April 7th. So don't go away, even though we're going to take a short break, because we will have more recommendations and more conversation about pop culture.
So I think when we have that Bloodshot Records conversation, we should do a draft, like where we draft our favorite Bloodshot record artists. And
I like that.
Yeah. And then you have to be sort of strategic, and then whoever comes up with the best, we could even do a poll and see who liked our choices better.
I like that idea. We got to start working on that right away. That'll be fun.
Yeah, will we? All right, we've already fallen apart. Where are we? I should say I've fallen apart. You're doing just fine.
We're going to fall apart and spend 2 weeks getting our shit back together. Third Song In is recorded in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and Joliet, Illinois. You can email us with your questions and comments at thirdsongin@gmail.com. Please do so. We'd like to hear back from you, find out what you think we should do to improve the podcast, or any suggested themes or topics. Please email us. You can also, and I beg you to, please follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. Rate and review us on all of the platforms. We stream on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and YouTube Music. Please rate us. Give us all your stars. Give us your stars. Give us your stars. Download the episodes, which apparently helps, and share them with your friends and neighbors.
I ask you to check out our website, thirdsonginpodcast.com. Right from the opening page, there's a link to our latest blog. Tom and I each write a blog every other week. I think we've had like 21 or so blogs posted, something like that. So plenty of material out there to read.
We?
Is it each? That's crazy.
I think it's close. Yeah, there's a lot of written material there. A lot of ramblings from our brains.
Yes, my brain is a rambler. You can also there's also access to all the podcasts, or at least the most recent ones. And then if you look up top at the menus, you'll have links to the recommendations, to the staff picks, and all the information that we've shared on the episodes. There's also a contact link at the top. So if you click that, send us a message. We'll get it in email and get back to you as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'd urge you, when you go to the website, look at our As Mentioned page as well. We've had a number of really cool guests over the last year, and we have links to their stuff, whether they're authors, musicians, or otherwise. We've tried to put links there so that you can see their work as well. We've also added links to, as mentioned, to our special playlists. Many of our guests have helped us curate a playlist along the lines of a specific theme, and those are a lot of fun to listen to as well. So definitely take a look at the As Mentioned page. We have a Facebook page as well. It's a good place to communicate with us, and we also, post updates, photos, sometimes a video here and there. And finally, with respect to the blog, we also post our blog on Substack, where you can subscribe to it, and I'd urge you to do that as well. Every little bit helps for us.
As we said, this was the season 6 finale. Look for our season 7 premiere on April 7th. As Tom said, we'll be talking about Bloodshot Records, and I will make the better choices of artists when we do our draft. You've been listening to Third Song In with Chris Derrickson and Tom Polachek. Thanks for listening.
Third song in.
We're recording.
Yep, we hit it. That's it. If you were wondering, that's the moment it happened.
What's funny is every once in a while I have this crazy idea. If we have a free morning, we'll record 2 episodes back to back. Could you imagine how fucked up that second episode would be?
Oh my God, it would just, we always try to put stingers at the end of the episode. It would just be an hour-long stinger to the episode we recorded first, because we
would just flip it. We'd have like 59 minutes of stinger and 30 seconds of episode.
Just before I left the house, there was a little segment on the local news about a grade school podcast club. And Dawn said, "Uh-oh, looks like you got competition." And I said, "Fuck those 6th graders."
Well, pummel them. There's no way that their vocabulary is anywhere close to ours.
Right.
So fuck those little assholes.
Those dip wads.